Welcome to another episode of the podcast. My name is Knives Monroe, and today I am with someone that I'm meeting for the first time, Christine Chen. Christine, how you doing?
Good. Technically, we met virtually. I remember you reaching out to me. I think was it on Instagram or on Facebook? I have no clue, but
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know who this Knives Monroe guy is, but like I like his name, and sure, let's do something, and that's all. Then I don't know what happened, but then then you kept developing, and then yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would see the work that you were putting in. I mean, I think we're just good marketers, apparently, and that's what connected us.
Yeah.
And people that like the same things tend to like each other, I think.
I think that's a good assumption.
I saw that you were a legit filmmaker, and I was like, okay, this is rare. Someone that's speaking my language. I'm a master of multiple things, you know what I mean? Do you act in front of the camera?
Sometimes. I started to because I didn't want to it's one less person that I have to cast for.
I know.
So I'm like, yeah, I can play the babysitter. Yeah, I can play the doctor. I've played many doctors. And then now because I AD so much, there's always a time when they're like, we need just one more person. I'll be like, I'll do it. Yeah.
Yep,
So
that's me.
That's how I end up in front of the camera.
That's me. So I want to get into how you became so busy, and I want to see if you can help me and the listeners, maybe give us some gems and see, I'm very big on unearthing people's secret sauce, because the truth is, if people have all the answers, they're not going to do anything with it, but some do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we get there, talk to me about your origin story. I mean, where were you born? Where did you come from?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in what you say like a pretty traditional Asian American family. And by traditional, I mean any kind of stereotype that you can think of that Asians have, I probably do. So like good at math, good at science. My parents wanted me to be a doctor and everything but a filmmaker. In fact, that was never a part of the vocab at all. So
Parents together?
Yes.
That's
And
great.
So, yeah, no, they're awesome. And they're immigrants from Taiwan, and they did the best they could. And honestly, they've succeeded. Brought up two kids. My brother and I. My brother's a doctor, orthopedic surgeon, so they got one of those at least.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, and so and I was kind of the black sheep. I always just loved creative stuff, and so
At a very young age.
At a very young age, I think I remember very vaguely that I'd said I wanted to be an actor. Very, very, I didn't know what that is,
Of course.
So it's funny how that worked out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was on the track to being some sort of engineer / or doctor or whatnot. So film is an anomaly. So
Are there any creatives inside of your family?
I would say my mom dabbles, and on her side of the family, she's the one with my cousins from that side teach piano, or so there's some music involved and stuff. And then it wasn't that they didn't believe in creativity; they just didn't believe in creativity as a money maker,
As a source of income.
Exactly.
But to be fair, I think it was way harder 30 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. You have to think of the context of what was going on and how our parents grew up, and it was never that your work was always just a means to survival, and it wasn't a means to your passion or anything. So,
May I ask you, how many birthdays have you had?
how many birthdays? I'm 35.
Oh, you're my wife's age. Yeah, no, that's awesome. So, talk to me about the moment, if there was a singular moment that you can recall where you're like, oh shit, I'm gonna be a filmmaker.
Yeah, it's funny because I can trace it to an exact moment. I had taken my first legit film class in undergrad. I went to Rice University for undergraduate.
Where is that?
Rice University is in Houston.
Oh, okay.
So I was there, and it was a documentary film class, and I knew I loved it because the amount of time proportionally that I spent on this one class versus my other 8 classes was stupid. It was 80% this one documentary class and 20 everything else. 10 everything else and 10 life. So when I got out of it, when I graduated, I felt something was missing, and I knew I didn't want to do the real job that I was doing, which when I got out of undergrad, I was a IT business consultant. And I took that job because I heard that consulting, you got to travel, and I did. But that was literally the only thing I liked about the job. It was just not for me. And like any kid who's like, I don't know, I don't like this, what's their next step? Oh, I'll go back to school, right? And I thought, what would I do? And I don't know, but being a lawyer was the thing that crossed my brain that seemed acceptable. And so I decided, okay, well, if I have to go to law school, I'd take the LSATs, and the universe has a funny way of shining down on you. So I took an LSAT prep course, and my LSAT prep course professor was a filmmaker.
Thank God.
And he was like, hey, we're doing the 48-hour film challenge in Houston. Do you want to do that? And I was like, yeah, you be a PA. I don't know what that is. So, because you got to understand, at that time, I touched everything film-wise. I did the camera work, I did the editing, I did everything. I never worked with a team prior to that. So, because narrative and documentary are very, very different. That's so right. That was my first experience working with a team of filmmakers. So I get on set and I'm like, there's a person that like does the focus thingy. Like, what is this?
What
world?
year? What year is this?
This was in 2004. I'm thinking 2004. Yeah.
Were you guys filming on DV or was it 16 millimeter?
So to backtrack, sorry, 2008 was very wrong. So I graduated in 2007. Okay.
Got it.
So mini DV was the little ones were had just come out not too long ago. And so they were taking the big HD cameras and shrinking them down, and that's how I did my docs, were on these little tiny HD mini DVs, and so it was on that like a mini DV.
What kind of subjects were you making documentaries about?
I had made a documentary in China. One of those like, oh, I don't know what I was doing, and then like fell into this amazing opportunity. So luck. The university was sponsoring 3 different documentaries by people of that language, and so they made a documentary for France for a French speaker, and then mine was Mandarin. I speak Mandarin fluently. That was literally the only criteria that I fulfilled, but because I had taken that one documentary film class, I was a filmmaker as well, so I fulfilled that criteria. And so when they were looking for, we're looking for Mandarin speaking filmmakers, I was like, I am one. And I got to go to Lijiang, China, which is like close to Tibet area in the Yunnan province, to make a documentary for a month there.
Wow.
For like they paid us to do that. We got to go there for a whole month, and I did not know what kind of opportunity.
This is a tremendous opportunity.
Yeah, I wish I told myself that to my 20-something-year-old self.
When you're that age, you're like, well, of course, this is just what happens.
Yeah, I'm entitled to this.
Isn't it crazy how long before you had another big W like that?
I would say
after that,
I parlayed that experience, and I was like, oh, universities will pay for stuff if you can make it some sort of benefit to the university. So when I went to business school, which is I'll get to there, at UT, got my MBA at McCombs. I pitched, my professor and I pitched that I make something for McCombs for their international program. So I got to go to India and do something like that too.
Wow.
But
so lucky.
Yes.
That's so cool. That was smart.
Yes. So
where did you get the savviness? Because there's a lot of filmmakers. Some of us learn, videography or photography or just editing. We kind of stay in our lane. And then I've noticed, here we are in 2021. Now you have to know everything, not just that, but you also need to know the business side.
Yes.
And you kind of have to know how to market yourself. I think we were talking about that off mic. How did you learn that savviness of like, I got to go out and I got to get it. And I got to put these things together.
Well, I think my mind, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. It's funny enough, probably born out of rebellion from my parents.
Really? Do you have a contentious relationship with them?
No, we're in a good spot now. We have very different mindsets in terms of like what we want for each other or for what they want from me. And none of it's bad. It's
It's a bunch of
just,
norms.
yes, they're very norms, and I'm very much like, well, I want to do this instead. And an example, and it all worked out and turned out for the better. I was able to flip it for something better. So to an extent, I thank them for giving me these barriers, obstacles per se, that I was able to creatively go around that made it a better experience. So in high school, I wanted to be financially independent, and
In high school.
yeah, because I knew very early on the financial independence meant that my parents had less control of me. Yes, because they would always use that as a threat, like, oh, well, that you'll live at home, or like you're never gonna. And
We put the food on the table, the roof over your head.
So you gotta do what we say. So I quickly associated money meant they can control me. So if I could control that factor, I had more control.
Mm-hmm.
And so in high school, I really wanted a job, and they're like, so I did get one. Just by my own fruition. It was just like a retail type thing. And my parents were flabbergasted at the $6 per hour minimum wage. You're like, you're not going to waste your time doing this, type thing. And I was like, but so then I created my own job where I made $40 an hour. I taught piano. So,
very smart.
So, but that was born out of this like, Mom and Dad, I'm going to make, I'm going to work, type thing. So then I really started to understand like the value of entrepreneurship. And so from there on, I funny. I 1 year I sold Cutco knives.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, I was really good at it too.
I never got to sell one, but I was in the presentation.
Okay.
I got to see them cut the penny.
Yes, cut the penny and the rope and the leather.
Oh yeah.
I was very good at it.
Were you?
I was very good at it.
What's like can you tell me like the biggest payday you ever got selling from Cutco?
Yeah, I sold like the ultimate, the giant like ultimate kit. And at that point, I worked my way up where I was getting 40% commission because I sold that much.
Oh yeah.
You make the tiers and stuff, and people know me, I'm highly competitive, and that's probably just by the way it was trained and brought up. And so when you put a tier system, I'm always aiming for the biggest tier system, no matter what. And so, I got to 40%. They were asking me to be a regional manager, and I was just like, I'm kind of bored now. So,
been there, done that. You conquered it.
I did it. Yeah, I did it. I made my goal, and
Wow.
I'm done. So, but I learned a lot from an experience of like, there were people in there that had like families that gave a crap about what they did, and I gave them all their I had zero contacts. My parents were like, no, we're not telling anybody that you do this. And so I went through my elementary, middle school, and high school phone books, the school phone books, called up people that I hadn't talked to in a while and be like, hey, I went to school with your daughter,
Cold calls. Yourself?
Yes.
You warmed up your own leads?
Myself, yeah. And then I took this very seriously. I got in contact with, I guess they have business bureau meetings. Like there's local business bureau. I got onto business bureau meetings. Whoa. I think they just let me in there because they thought it was really hilarious that this like high school girl was selling knives and like taking this so seriously that she wanted to go to the business bureau meetings.
Well, don't sell yourself short because confidence can get ourselves into doors. Just on audacity alone.
I agree. On my way to a showing, I was speeding and a cop pulled me over. I sold him.
Shut up. No way. No way.
I kid you not.
Oh, no way.
He was like, why are you in such a hurry? I was like, well, okay. The funny thing is, like, I'm on the way to show these knives and they're awesome. Do you want to see them? They're in my back seat. And then he was like, yeah, sure. Are they the cut the penny kind? I was like, yeah. He was like, okay, I'll try. And then he was like, these are really cool. Yeah, I sold him something. Yeah.
Wow. That is insane.
So, yeah. So all these little things, Steve Jobs always says you retroactively you can connect the dots and they lead to some path. don't think that you always have to follow the same path. Sometimes you have to retroactively connect the dots and you'll see your path. And I feel like that's been me. It's that I have had all these different experiences that seemingly have no connection to each other, yet they're very connected.
Are you
So,
spiritual?
yeah, I would say that.
Do you believe in a great algorithm in the sky?
I think so. I think there's something there. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to quantify,
Yeah.
right? The reason why I ask is you seem like a very thoughtful, empathic, spiritual person. You even having to, the wherewithal to want to connect the dots.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. You're trying to find order in the chaos, right? It's
I think
meaning
so.
in things.
Meaning, yes.
You mentioned Steve Jobs. Did you have influences or heroes growing up, like maybe that sort of had blueprints of, oh, I can go down this path?
Sure. Not, to tell you the truth, not really. Like, nobody in my family was doing it. I think it was literally just the pure love. Nothing made me happier. So maybe it was for selfish reasons. Like,
Okay, talk to me about this, because I've had moments where in my heart I'm like, I'm retired. I can't do this anymore.
yeah.
Why am I doing this? I hate it. Like, I've had those moments where, as much as I love filmmaking, and it's provided me so much and given so much to my circle, I've just been like, what's this all for? Fuck all this. And I've never been the type of person that's like, Mom, I'm going to win an Academy Award. Those kind of carrots aren't my thing. And if there's somebody else's thing, wonderful. For me, it was just the legitimacy. I wanted to be validated, I think, by something or someone. But I've had moments where post-validation where I'm like, what the fuck am I doing this for? The love. I mean, how do you refall in love? Like, how do you hold on to that fire sometimes? Because for me, right now it's burning bright, but I've had moments where it's dying.
I understand that. I think it's not reasonable to say that despite loving what you do, that there are days that it's going to feel like a job, and it will. And I think you just have to keep going back to, like, why did you want to do it in the first place, right?
Yeah.
What is it about it that you loved? And then finding something. It's like rekindling the relationship. If you have a relationship, right, when you're married, and I'm not married, but you are.
Good for you.
But when you're married and you've been with that one person forever, how do you rekindle the first time you meet spirit, right?
It's exactly what you said. You treat it like you're in the beginning.
Exactly. And that's how I think about with film. It's like, I think when you really love something, you realize there's always something to learn. And when you can find something that you don't know anything about, again, then it becomes exciting. And so, an example, if I did so many feature films and I'm like so bored of it, what would I do? I've never worked on film before.
Really?
Maybe I will do a whole film using film. That's something different. Or swapping genres. I swap genres all the time because I'm always trying to learn different styles and play. And there are people who just like, oh, I just do drama, or I'm very much like, I'm most interested in the characters within it and how they grow versus like what genre it is.
Absolutely.
And so, if you look through my body of work, I'm on. My first stuff was comedy, and then I go to a thriller, and then I go to a string of dramas. Now I'm back to a fantastical thriller. So like
this is exciting.
It's
to hear.
all over. Yeah, so it's exciting. Yeah, it's changing, so if I just pick on something that I've never touched or learned or want to learn more about, then the excitement comes back.
Let's go back to China and India. You're a post-grad already?
Yes.
You get these opportunities. They're paid?
Yeah.
So are you in charge? Is it your responsibility where, like, the shelf life of these films, where they go, the success they are? Like, what does the win look like?
Sure. For the China and the India. So I didn't know what I was doing.
I figured. It's a lot to ask for.
Probably should have submitted my stuff to festivals, but to be real, I didn't know anything. I didn't know what film festivals were.
Who owned these films that you were making at the time?
Technically, the school does.
Yeah. And so what was their plan? What were they going to do with that?
So Rice, so I heard, is still using my film to teach class.
Incredible.
Which is...
That's a great shelf life right there.
Yeah. So their whole purpose was, how do we teach the language in an interesting, dual way and you can also teach the culture of it. So I think it's pretty genius. Um, the documentary, we fell into it, and like I said, it was done in Lijiang. When we went there, it was 10 years after this really horrific earthquake, like seismic 7 or something really bad. And prior to this earthquake, it was like a hole in the wall time, almost like Cuba. Like time was standing still in that place, carts with horses pulled, like because there was no need to change.
Mm.
And once the not hurricane, once the earthquake hit, it put it on the map because it made it a international, like, we need to help this place. And then people went and were like, wow, this place is amazing. Let's make a UNESCO World Protected Spot. Then tourism flooded in, and then before you know it, there's skyscrapers, hotels, and everything.
Do you think that's good?
So that was the debate in my documentary.
Wow.
Whether that's good or not. Whether it's so that the topic was whether cultural preservation is, whether that's good if it's completely inauthentic. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm not even that deep right now as a 32-year-old to really tackle a subject like that. And you were doing that, I mean, in your 20s?
Yeah.
Insane. So what was the thesis that you landed on?
I think I lean towards that it's preservation either way. So it's kind of like, the way I think of it is sometimes you need to make it a fad to make something stick.
How do you mean?
So think of it, recycling, right? Do you think there are people who are going to recycle because fundamentally they really believe in that, right? But there are people who are going to do it because, hey, it's everybody else is doing it and it's cool now, and like, oh, and it's beneficial to my business to look like I care about recycling by doing the cool, like, trash cans. I have the,
green initiative.
Yeah, initiative. We're going green. That looks great on marketing. The fad, right? But then after a while, you do it and it becomes a habit. It sticks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of the same way. It's like your end goal is to preserve culture. Yes, maybe initially you did it for marketing reasons or for your own whatever benefit, but in the end, you still achieved the same goal, right? You'd still preserved the culture. Now, some people are going to say, well,
because it put the place on the map.
It put the place on the map and people cared about it.
It's relevant now.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
And now we're talking about the meaning to this day.
Yes.
Wow. So, do you think the culture gets to stay intact?
I think.
Should cultures?
But then there's the other thing. There is another thing that's like there's a natural order of things, right? Where there is a reason why certain things die out, and right. So it's weird. It's weird because it's like, are we?
You mean like Rome?
Yeah, So I don't know. I was very mixed about it, but I think in the end, when I think about it, I think it's better than it dying out. Yeah, in my opinion.
By this time, when you were making these documentaries, had you had a moment where you're like, I think I'm pretty good at this?
No,
not yet. When did that moment come?
So I had the doc stage, and then I decided to go narrative when I jumped onto that 48-hour film, because the team aspect part was so mind blowing. Like, just. I think I would sit and stare at people like doing their jobs. So I was like, wow, this person's just doing this little wheel thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm a man, right? And naturally I'm poisoned by testosterone.
Yeah.
So there's an ego in everything, unconsciously sometimes. When you're approaching this team element, are you like, I'm going to be as a competitive person, I'm going to be the director, the leader of this team? Or were you like, I'm going to be a wallflower in the beginning?
In the beginning, I knew I didn't know what I was doing. So I was okay to watch. But then when I started to get into it, then I knew, like, I'm going to be the director. Like,
really?
Yeah. And I think it's just, I was just fascinated by every aspect of filmmaking. And I think that's the whole, like, finding something new again about filmmaking was now I had, instead of me with the camera editing and everything, it was a whole team of different departments that I get to learn about, and it was after that I did like a string of very not successful short films that never saw the light of day. Mm-hmm. And then when I moved to Austin, that's when I to do my grad school degree. That's when I really became very, very, very serious about it. Prior to that was like, let's see what narrative filmmaking is about, and like kind of just had dabbled at it. And I learned very quickly from my first short film experience that I tried to make that you don't hire people based off of what they have, you hire based off of the people. So I had a whole team that I completely could not stand, but I hired them because they had access to equipment, and that killed the project.
It always does.
Yeah, it always does, because it's like it's a respect thing. They don't respect you. You don't respect them. Then you don't respect your work, right?
Right.
So and so that was why the first project fell apart. The second one only fell apart because I didn't control the editing process. Yeah.
Doesn't this hurt?
So I learned very fast what process I needed to control, and I had that. And that's why when I talk to filmmakers and stuff, I always stress, if you can learn to edit, and I did, because of what I think my documentary background.
Yeah.
You can control your work and the deliverables, which is the end product.
Can you talk to me about the biggest failure that you've had in filmmaking?
The biggest failure.
Or failures.
I would say those were pretty big, because those are the only things I never finished. Everything else I've always finished. So I would say the biggest failures are things that didn't finish.
What was the resistance
to finishing it?
While you're connecting the dots, looking back.
Sure. The first one was definitely that I had such a negative experience that it just made everything negative. And it became not fun, because every time I would look at the project, I would keep thinking, this is not what I wanted. And I
hate that feeling. I've been there. Yeah. I hate that feeling. I have blown up the boat that I'm on with everybody else on it because of that reason.
Yeah.
And you think, and I learned the lesson the hard way, an expensive lesson as well. Don't make something and invest money and time and people's time in something you don't love.
Exactly.
And all the good things and the baggage that comes with love, drive, hunger, obsession, waking up in the morning, being a good leader, all these things, that's what comes with love, giving more than you're taking. All of a sudden I'm like, why did I write this? I don't care about this, anymore. It's not worth the bullshit.
Yeah.
And then so you cut your losses.
Yep. That's what I did. And I regret, I look back and I know why I did it. But
why you did what? You cut your losses?
Cut my losses. But now I think about it, I'm like, I should have gotten over myself and just instead thought about, like, what about all the other people that put in the time?
Did you have the skill, experience, knowledge to know how to do that then? Because that's
right.
That's today, Christine, knowing that now. I know I didn't have the leadership capabilities to do that at the time. I can admit that now.
I probably could have. I just wasn't willing to put in the time.
Was it petty?
Yeah, it was definitely a little bit of that, and also a little bit of like, this is not my work. Like, like I'm, but yeah, there were other people who put in that time, and I should have respected that. So that's why, to me, it was a failure.
Yeah.
The second one, there were things that were working against us.
Like what?
So, like I said, couldn't control the editing. My friend edited it on Avid, which I did not have. So when I moved to Austin, it just got lost because he already had some of it edited, but he had other projects that he had by that time had to go on. So then by the time I was ready to be like, hey, just give me I'll just start from scratch. The files had already like corrupted or like from time, and it wasn't meant to be.
Isn't it terrible that it's gone?
It is.
All you have is the memory of it.
I at least have a trailer from it.
You're speaking my language. My listeners have heard me, and I don't want to go through this, and unless you want to, but in 2014, I made a movie. I wrote it in January. We casted it in February. We shot it in March. I cut it in April. We screened it in May. It was just so fast. It was a feature film.
Yeah.
And it was a disaster. And I don't have a copy of that movie today. I've only seen it like the 2 times we screened it.
Yeah.
But I got a trailer. That's all I have.
Totally.
And so it feels like, I don't know, it feels like a lost limb or something. I can't even say it was
yeah.
like a child. I can't even say that because it doesn't exist right now. And I would love one day to go to Redbox and I see it, you know, because these producers that I made the movie with decided to cut me out, you know, and I get it, but I would never do that.
Right.
I would never do that as a leader, especially as the writer, director. I did everything on that fucking movie. I would never do that today, but boy, I must have burned them real bad, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's ego on both sides, but that crushed me. I mean, I saw a counselor after that. I had a mental breakdown. I had my child around that time.
Yeah.
And it was just, I spent $8,000. That was a lot of money. I was working at Burger King was my day job.
I get you.
You know, I was dying, man. And there was a while for like a year. So not only did that happen, but I was also going through this existential crisis of like, what being a filmmaker in the modern age is, you know, when you have YouTube and all these things. I'm like, what is happening? Are you familiar with Joe Swanberg?
Mm-mm.
He's this DIY filmmaker that is responsible, I think, for this genre called mumblecore.
Okay.
Which is just very talky, Clerks-esque, kind of like cheap filmmaking, Dogma kind of thing. And I was just I was like an elitist as a filmmaker coming up. I was like, cinema. It's not a movie, it's a film. Cinema. I was that guy. And I was seeing these kids come up on Vine and make careers. And I'm like, but that's not, I don't want to go on Vine because that's not cinema. I don't want to go on YouTube because that's not cinema.
I was very opposite of
that held me back for a long time until I had, and also I was jaded and bitter, which is just amplified self-pity. Mm-hmm. It's not helpful, I learned. And around this time where I'm like, do I even want to make movies? Like, what is a movie? Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
But the industry did kind of change. Like the indie dream that I had in 2004, like filmmaking is not that today.
Right.
It's weird. Everything's on screens. If you made a movie and you put it on Amazon Prime, I'm going to watch it in the comfort of my home. Whether if it's on YouTube or Netflix, it's all the same delivery system. Same. So I was precious about that, and it really held me back. For you, it sounds like it.
I was the opposite of
Tell me more about that because you're a pioneer.
I was totally the opposite of that. I would just wanted anything that I could get my hands on to have a voice. I think was what it was, and call it pent up expression that I didn't get to have, and it just felt like with film, it was the one place I could say whatever I wanted it, and it was fine. I would be okay, you know, and people would appreciate that. And so when the YouTube craze came out, I for a brief moment thought I'm going to be a YouTube star. I really did think that.
Did you think that you'd be a director visionary person, or you'd be the personality in front of the camera?
I think it was always director-esque. I don't think I never had aspirations to be like a personality.
Really?
I think because...
You remember Freddie Wong?
Yes, I loved Freddie Wong.
That guy's my hero. He's my hero.
Stuff.
He was one of the guys that... This guy changed my life with one YouTube video. People would always ask him, what camera are you using?
Yeah.
What software are you using to edit? And he was just like, that shit doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
He's like, eventually... get good on one, you move to the other. If you guys want to know, I use this camera. If you want to know, I use this editing system. And he said, and I've been trying to find the video. I don't know if it exists. It was like a Q&A thing from 2010. And he said, filmmaking is a language. And so you need to become fluent in that language. It's just a language. Mm-hmm. And the more you speak it, the better and more fluent you get. So go out there and go get some reps, right? And I was like, well then that means I can do stuff on YouTube because it counts because it's all the language, man. It doesn't matter, you know? And so that was a massive unlock. Freddie seems to be doing great.
Man, that's so funny. I was a huge fan of Freddie Wong.
I think he's the Robert Rodriguez of our era.
Yeah. I watched their stuff. I watched Film Riot stuff.
Film Riot. I think they're Austin guys.
Yeah. Oh, are they Austin?
Or I know they're definitely Austin or Dallas, yeah.
Gosh, I was a huge fan of them. Still am, you know. When Casey Neistat blew up, I was a huge fan of him.
Game changer. I think he's the what's his name? The guy who did A Band Apart, French filmmaker, French new wave guy. I can't remember his name.
I wouldn't know.
John Luke Goddard.
Okay.
This guy who just created a whole new wave.
Yeah.
Like this new wave was created by Casey. Like,
Yeah.
It's a whole new genre, like you said, genre.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
no, but I figured out the language part pretty fast. And I was whatever I could do to speak the language was kind of the game plan. And so when YouTube came and I saw the power of what that was, I really took to it. And so that hit me when I was starting business school. So business school, I went because out of rebellion from my parents, I had to think of a way.
You gotta claim your autonomy.
Yeah,
your independence.
Exactly, and I had to figure out a way. How do I get out of society without having to have a job per se, but still not be considered a bum by my parents, and they would still support me to an extent.
Okay, this right here is the dream. Did you pull it off?
Yeah, I did. I was like, I'm just going to go to business school.
What'd you learn?
I learned that was probably one of the smartest things I did, because it afforded me the freedom I made a lot of films when I was in business school. And not cinema per se, but I made a lot of YouTube type. I practiced my writing. I learned how to work with actors. And
what kind of stuff were you making?
Like YouTube sketches.
Really?
I had a whole
like Smosh kind of stuff.
I guess it's what you would call it. Yeah, like I had a whole thing of NBA branded content, so like funny like shit NBA say, or like
college humor.
College humor, yes. There we go. I did a music video called "Getting My NBA" to the sound of "Jizz My Pants." I wrote, some music.
Hey, Lonely Island, man.
I love Lonely Island so much. Like, I love Lonely Island.
Yeah, they nailed it. They're geniuses.
Yeah, geniuses. Like, I love Lonely Island. And then I did I figured out, and this is what I'm good at. I figured out how to use what I had and to make the most out of it. And at that point, it was my colleagues in class. So, like, I didn't have access to actors and stuff like that, and I didn't know how to, and so I used what I had and made it work, basically. So, So, and then from there, started to expand my stories, better written comedy content. Then I started to meet actors, from I think the first thing was some music video that I casted, and Kelsey Probilski was one of the actresses that I met on there, who's like blowing up now, and she came in, became kind of like a muse, where I like wrote a lot of sketches from there, and we just did like so many sketches. And what I was realizing is my stories were getting more complicated, and I was naturally coming out of the YouTube language no longer served what I wanted to do anymore.
What do you mean by that?
I wanted things to be more cinematic. I wanted longer form. So it was no longer the 2 to 3 minute, type thing. Like, I was growing beyond that. And that's when I fell into true cinema narrative filmmaking, I would say.
Around what year was this?
Let's see here. So I did YouTube stuff all through business school. So 2012 is when I graduated.
That was a really beautiful time to grow, I feel.
It was great.
I was getting some reps in around that time as well.
Yeah. And also that was time too, like, you could get a lot of traction.
Yeah.
Like, now you put something on YouTube, you can barely get any views, but then like you put something out, you get like thousands of views immediately, because there was not enough content.
Yep.
And yeah, so I made so much stuff from 2010 to 2012. I would say there was this summer that I was able to spend in LA. I was interning as part of my MBA. I found a creative internship with 20th Century Fox in LA, and that was my like, let's try this out, shall we, type thing.
Wow.
And my parents were like, no.
Still?
Yeah.
Still resistance from them?
They've been so resistant all the way. I can pinpoint when they stopped too.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
we'll put a pin in that. Where I
So,
want to
yeah.
get there. I can't.
No,
It's
they were
stubborn.
not happy, and they're like, "You figure out how to survive if you
You're
crash and burn."
You're traveling the world and you're self-sufficient.
Yeah, they didn't.
Not
see
good
that.
enough for them.
They didn't see that. So they're like, you figure this out. If you crash and burn, it's your own fault. Like, don't come crawling back to us, kind of thing. So I was like, I'm gonna figure it out. So I go and I'm like, shit, I have to make rent in LA. How do I do that?
Yeah.
So
Nuts.
I lived like I lived in a one room. There were two people in it, so it was like $500 for rent, which
Yeah.
was like, okay, that's doable. And I just said yes.
What were you doing for cash?
I said yes to a lot of stuff. So, but because I wasn't given that, I learned even more because I had to survive, right?
That's right.
And so I said yes to all sorts of editing jobs. So I did lots of editing for very little money. I said yes to sitting in the audience. They do that. They pay you to sit as an audience
Mhm.
member. Like, you make $8 an hour just sitting there, and that was mind blowing because I was like, whoa! Like, it's sitting in this MTV whatever as an audience, I'm getting paid $8 an hour. Aziz Ansari's like chatting like up on the stage. This is badass. I just said yes to a lot of stuff. And then I also interning, which was paying me a total of $2,000 for the 3 months I was there.
Gotta love the stipend.
But at least there was something.
There
was something. But what that allowed me to do was, like, I don't understand boundaries. So, like, they would say, this is your job. And I'm very good at eavesdropping. And, one day my mentor is like complaining that he has to work on the weekend and he has to do some sort of director's interview series. And I was like, I'll come and help. And he was like, it's the weekend. I was like, so? And so I got to like chat with Cameron Crowe,
wow,
and stuff. And he's like complaining about this. And I'm like, this is the coolest experience ever.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And so that's the luck, but like creating your own luck opportunity thing.
That's right.
And so I was just hungry. I was so hungry for stuff in LA, and I made friends I had actor friends, and so they were all part of SAG. So I got to go to all the SAG events and then meet people through that. And then because there were a bunch of actors, they were hungry. So then anytime we would sit around, just be hanging out, and I'd be like, wouldn't it be funny if, and then insert log line. And then we would be making that like in 10 minutes, like from saying that to like,
yeah,
because I brought my camera, I had everything in.
That's the best feeling. That right there is everything.
Yeah. And
can't you just live in that pocket forever?
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
And how much I improved as a filmmaker in those few months was exponential.
I believe
because of that.
I believe it.
Because I was surrounded by people who were hungry, who wanted to do stuff just as much as I wanted to, in an environment that had a lot of opportunities in terms of access.
You guys were not judging yourselves?
No, we weren't. And we were just having fun. And because of that, like, I just made stuff after stuff. And that was when I was testing myself. And so this is the point when you were just asking, when did you know that you were good enough to do it? Well, I was like, let me see. Let me prove to myself I can do this. And I set this goal. So at that point, there was this company called Pop Tent. Pop Tent, there is a similar company now. I forgot that has survived, but Pop Tent was this genius idea of allowing brands and filmmakers to find a happy medium. So they would go to brands, ask them for a creative brief. What do you need right now? And they would put out a creative brief. Then they would make it a competition for filmmakers to submit specs. It was very brilliant. I don't know why it didn't succeed.
It's genius now.
They
were too early, is what it sounds like.
It was too early, I think what it was. And so it was, and they would be paying like $5,000 for your spec, which is a shit ton of money for a filmmaker, but nothing to a brand. It was a genius idea. And so I started competing in those because, I'm competitive. And so PayPal, I did some specs. Clinique, I did specs, and I won some of these.
Hell yeah.
And so then it became, I was no longer just a nobody. I was a filmmaker that has worked with brands like Clinique and PayPal, you know? and I made all these during this period in LA. And yeah, I remember going to the mall with my mom and seeing my
Shut
film
up.
playing on the Clinique counter.
That's the best.
Yeah, and I was like, look, I'm legit. Yeah, but I fell into that, like it wasn't like I didn't, and that was when
you didn't fall into it. You jumped into it.
I jumped into it. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
It wasn't an accident. You were hungry. You were not judging yourself. You were going all in. You were saying yes to everything. That's the magic sauce.
Yeah, I said yes to everything.
Yeah,
and that's when I was like, I can do this. Yeah, I know I can do this. Like.
This LA was when? 2010, 2012?
2011.
2011.
2011, yeah.
I was fucking around in 2011.
2011.
I was trying. Yes. I was making some YouTube stuff, but man, I try not to compare myself to other people, but it's really so inspiring. The balls it takes to do all those things.
Yeah, I was just having fun.
Massive. Guts, though. It takes guts to live in a $500 rent studio apartment with two other people or another person. Like, most women don't have the guts to do that for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
I
kind of did it ignorance too, right? A little bit.
I love ignorance.
Yeah, I didn't think that was a bad idea, but now I think about it, like, oh my God, that could have been really dangerous.
I'm glad it wasn't.
But yeah, no, I just jumped right in and I learned so much.
Why didn't you say, fuck it, I'm going to live in LA?
I thought about that. Honestly, my life would have been so different, but would have been. I really, really, really was like, I don't want to leave LA. I love it here. I had so much fun. I didn't understand why people had so much hate towards LA.
Jaded,
I guess. But I was making stuff. I was making money. I was surviving, and like I loved it. But I think what it was I had talked to a friend, and he was like, "What do you want to do?" And at that point, I honestly didn't know. If I was a direct, I still wasn't sure that was what I just knew I wanted to make films. Now I didn't know what capacity that was. And he was like, and I knew that I wanted to survive and I wanted a way to pay my bills. So I knew I wanted to start a production company. That was how I connected the dots.
And you did.
And I did. And he had said, if you want to start a production company, LA is probably not the easiest place to do that. But if you know exactly that you want to be a specific crew member or a specific thing, then come to LA. And at that point, I couldn't honestly say I knew exactly what I wanted to do. So I was like, all right, I want to create a production company. I'll just continue because I was already doing that in.
You have a tremendous gut instinct, though. I think that was a smart move.
Yeah, so that's what I did. I stayed in Austin and I jumped in, whatever, like. It's one of the smartest things I did. I had started my production company in 2010 when I started business school.
What's it called?
Moth of Flame.
Beautiful.
Yes. And what's funny is I didn't realize how smart it was that I had started while in business school. Because if you think about it, I'm the only filmmaker that any of my colleagues know. And they all go out and find real jobs. And what do all those companies need?
Content.
And I am the only filmmaker that they know. So that's how I started to. So by 2011, before I even graduated, I was breaking even, at least.
Very good.
So I was. So by
it was way harder to make art money back then.
Yes. So by 2012, I was financially independent, and I was able to survive off of what I was making. So. Knowing that's why I came back to Austin, because I was like, all right, I have clients, and I can make a living. Now, it was not easy.
Of course not.
I moved into my business school BFF's dining room. So
I really respect your humility.
Well, I was just like,
for some people, they're not willing to. That one could consider that a step going backwards.
Sure.
Some people are too precious about that.
I'm not at all.
And I love that.
Yeah.
That's to your credit.
Which is another secret sauce, I think. Is that like I'm willing to make sacrifices.
That's what it takes.
Yeah. And I've told lots of people that who are like, oh, what does it take? And I was like, know what your priorities are and what you're willing to sacrifice. And I'm willing to sacrifice a lot more things than most people are.
Yes.
So
that's right.
Yeah. So I moved into the dining room. People thought people who came in always thought she lived in a studio because you'd see my bed and then like kitchen and everything. And she's like, no, I actually have a room. She has a room. And I was the one who just lived in the dining room. But hey, that meant $300 for rent instead of $800, and I just slowly worked my way up. So that from there, I lived like that for like 2 years, and then she moved into a bigger apartment with like a study. So
were you saving money?
I was barely making it. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
But I was a startup,
of course,
right? And startups don't, from an average, from what I studied in business school, startups don't start really going past breaking even until 3 years into your company.
Okay. That's good to hear.
Right?
That's good to hear.
Yeah. So it was very hard. But what I was smart about was I started in 2010 while I was on student loans. So yes. So I bypassed 2 of the hardest years.
Yes, you did. Yeah, very smart.
So my first year was extremely hard because I had no student loans anymore. I was on my own and having to survive. But because of that, I probably succeeded faster because it was do or die.
Mm-hmm.
It was do I eat or not, you know?
Yep.
And I had zero safety net, you know? And so from there, the first year was extremely hard. And then after that, it wasn't so bad anymore. And I passed that 3-year mark, and still to this day, I'm still surviving off of Moth of Flame. But
that's awesome. Congratulations,
but that's
man.
what I'm saying. Like, it's just, I was willing to sacrifice.
Do you have employees?
Yeah, I have. So I tried the employee thing,
and
I learned really fast that it's best to do. For me, it was best to do contractors than actual. I have people who like they don't
financially speaking, or
both. Financially, when you are committed to having people on your payroll, then you almost become you prioritize them getting the work, right? Because they're spending your money. Therefore, you want to get the most out of that. So you give them all the projects when that may not be the best fit. So what I learned was I needed to match people to the projects and not be forced for economic reasons to rely on a specific person because they're on my payroll.
Can you shine some light on that? Because this is something that people need to hear.
Totally. So I tried out one employee, and at that moment of Moth of Flame, which I think was in 2013 or 14, I was doing a lot of weddings. So in the beginning, you do everything, say yes to anything.
That's
so
right.
I did a lot of weddings.
I still do that. I've actually just learned I need to start saying no.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a bit.
Yes. You get to a point where you're like, no way, no more. I don't do weddings anymore. But at that point, weddings was what made money.
I get it.
And I needed to make money. And so in all those weddings that needed to be edited fell on one person that was my employee.
Holy smokes, that's a lot.
And they hated it. And when you hate it, you don't stay very long, or you hate it and you don't do a good job, right? And so I learned but then I learned that there were people who were happy to edit that wedding.
Yep.
You know, and wanted that. And that's when I had the aha moment of, I need to fit the project to the person. And that's where I went full contractor.
That is a powerful distinctive for sure.
Yeah, because people burn out. I wouldn't want to edit weddings, but like, that's not I'm an employee. That's not my decision. If the company is only bringing in weddings, I'm going to have to edit 20 weddings, you know? So, but like, instead of that, when I went to contractors, then I would parse it to 20 different people, all of them, all excited to just have a job or excited about editing that wedding. And then it got done faster because it was new to them. And,
you're able to scale.
Out.
You're able to do more.
I was able to do more.
It's
I didn't burn somebody out, you know, type thing. And then like I could take other stuff. So it just, for me, it worked out that way. And now like I wouldn't say I have employees, but I have people who are loyal to Moth Flame, you know.
That's great to hear.
Yeah. So, but business is an ever changing, living, breathing thing. So back then I did weddings. Now I'm in a completely different boat.
What boat are you in now?
I'm very picky. I do creative marketing, I would call it. And Moth of Flame has really transitioned more to just creative type of content. And it's because my focus has changed. So in the beginning, my focus was survival as a business owner. I got into it 3 years after, so 2015, 2016, when I was starting to realize I wasn't getting to do what I actually love to do. I was running a business, and the actual filmmaking part was falling
Are you more of the
behind.
business owner, operator, or are you the artist?
I'm more of an artist, and that's when I realized in 2015, 16, I was unhappy because I was like, I miss making movies.
You like doing the grunt work.
I love doing the movie part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How'd you
And
make that
so-
transition? Like, what were some actions you took?
Yeah. So at that point, 2014, I just made my first feature around that time.
What's it called?
Fun Employment.
Fun
Yeah.
Employment?
Fun Employment.
Where
yes.
can we watch it?
So you could originally watch it on Amazon. I haven't. There's a glitchy thing in it where I have to go renew something with
Okay.
it or like upgrade some stuff. So right now you can't, but like you can look it up on Vimeo.
You made this in 2014, 2015?
Yeah. So I shot it in 2013. So here's a whole other story with Fun Employment.
Hopefully we have some time. What's give me a hard out?
Okay.
What's a hard out time?
Hard out. Let's say here.
It's 10:02.
Let's look. What's COVID? Okay. Let's say, because he had said noon would be okay. So let me just let Johnny know.
Take all the time you need.
Let's do noon. So if I move that to noon, then my heart out can be like 11ish.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask, what was the budget of this, and how'd you get the budget?
Okay, so the budget was $30,000.
Holy shit! Are you kidding me? You had a multicam.
Yeah,
What did you film it on?
So I, again, luck / seeing an opportunity / I was going to shoot it all on DSLRs because that was when DSLRs were huge, and I had one.
Which DSLR?
I had a Canon T2i.
Fuck yeah, that was my first DSLR.
I love that thing. Yeah,
that was my first DSLR.
And then my friend had a 7D, so I borrowed that. But what was funny was kind of much like how you met me. Somebody reached out to me that I never met, Ase Bansu, and he was like, "Hey, I'm new to town, and I have a red camera. Here you go."
No way.
I kid you not. Yeah, I have a red camera. I don't know what to do with it because I would say he was a filmmaker. He loved he loved watching filmmakers and being involved somehow and trying to be a filmmaker, but he was more like a gearhead and just fascinated with the tech of it. So he would always have the latest stuff.
Was it a Scarlett?
It was a Scarlett, yes. And he was like, I don't want to not doing anything. It's just sitting in my room. And I was like, can I borrow it? Well, actually, I'm good about like when I'm excited about something, telling him, oh, I'm about to do this feature, blah. So he was probably excited from it. He was like, what kind of camera are you using? I probably told him the Canon DSLR. So he's like, well, I've read, you want to use that? And I was like,
say that again. Yeah.
Hells yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
So one red.
I had one red.
Wow. Mm-hmm. What did you film it in 4K, 1080p?
In 4K.
Man, you went all out.
I went all out. Yeah. I also learned the hard way that it's very difficult to edit 4K on old school computers.
Did you have to do proxy files?
I didn't know about proxies.
Fuck. Damn it.
Yeah, I did. That's why I've learned so many things by mistakes, you know?
Of course.
Because I had no clue.
That's how you learn.
I had no clue. So my computer would like crash every 10 minutes, basically.
Holy smokes.
That's how I edited it.
Okay, so how'd you raise 30 grand?
This was when crowdfunding was becoming a big thing.
Yeah.
And I tried my luck in crowdfunding.
But surely you have to have developed an audience, though.
Well, let's go back to business school.
Yeah.
So I had told them, and if you people who know me, I don't say stuff that I won't do. And I can guarantee that 100%.
You're a woman of your word.
I will. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do my absolute best to do that. And it's not like absolute best, like, oh, I said it and then I couldn't because, no, I tried it and maybe I failed, type thing. But like, I will do it. Mm-hmm. And so when I was in business school, the thing I was telling everybody was that I want to make a feature film. I want to make a feature film. So they already knew I was going to make this thing. So that when I was doing this Kickstarter, people were lining up to help me with
Tremendous.
it. Yeah.
What
so
did you
I got
ask for?
lucky.
What did you get?
I made exactly 30. I asked for 30 and I got 30. Actually, it was slightly more than that because there was some stuff that was off the
Kickstarter, or
it was off of Kickstarter.
wow.
Yeah, it was Kickstarter. I mean, it was a full-time job. I like did all the marketing stuff. I, bothered people. It was a full-time thing. Like I worked hard for it. I didn't just like make a thing and then it just suddenly.
It was Cutco Christine.
It was Cutco, yeah. Kickstarter Christine for sure. Yeah. And so, but I hustled and I got it.
Wow.
And I shot it. Like,
where'd the money go? If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, really in post.
Really?
And the reason why is because I didn't understand the value of sound at that point. And
but like even like Foley and all this crazy labbing stuff and redundancies.
I had no clue. It's funny because like the stuff that we shot earlier was most of the stuff we had ADR, but then like at a certain point I learned, and everything else behind that was like fine. Like it was, but I had to go through like the sound quality.
Yeah, invested
in like better equipment, and towards the middle, and I found somebody on our team naturally fell into the sound position. That somebody is Jason Cates. And then we gave him he became sound person, and then from there on the sound was great, like in the film.
Beautiful. That's good that you found it in the film.
Yes, that's while we were shooting, because the shooting process was not your typical shooting process.
How many shooting days?
Probably like 40 some.
Yeah. Holy smokes!
But because I shot it like a documentary, like I didn't have a typical. Hey, we have a schedule.
Do you storyboard?
I did not at that point.
Okay.
Because I remember I came from YouTube.
True.
Where it was very much off the cuff.
Sort of like Zen kind of like we're going to find it.
So it's interesting if you watch Fun Employment.
I really want to watch it now.
Yeah, I'll send you a link.
Thank you.
Because you can see where the YouTube comes from. Because you'll see that each of these scenes can stand alone.
Did you ever see Mystery Team with Donald Glover?
Is it something I should watch?
Donald Glover started on YouTube and then was able to parlay that into getting a $3 million movie made. I think it went to Sundance or something.
It's cool.
And it was basically like their YouTube channel in a feature film.
That's very cool.
So there's a lot of little, it's very vignette-y, very Lonely Island.
Yeah, so it's kind of like that. So like the scenes are very vignette-y, and the part I struggled with was connecting it together, actually. So the transitions.
So you wrote it?
I wrote it, yes.
Are you in it?
Yes, probably in and out here and there for sure. Everybody and their mom were in it, wasn't it?
Of course.
Pretty much. What it started off with was my friend Daniel Siddiqui and I had a concept. He made a full feature, wrote it, and it was like 300 pages. It was stupid.
It's too long.
It was too long. It was stupid. I took one class during my business school that I was allowed to do at film school. So I took a graduate level screenwriting class. I was the worst screenwriter
oh man,
by far.
Really?
Because I didn't know what I was doing. Yeah, I was terrible. These are people who are getting their like masters in screenwriting. They've been screenwriting forever.
Wow.
And I'm in here being like, I didn't even write this. Like I'm just like tweaking. He gave it to me and I like tore it apart and made it my own basically. But I had bones, so he helped me write the bones, and then I readapted it. I would say
that's
completely
good. That's,
changed it.
That's a good exercise. Yeah, for sure.
And
have you gotten better at screenwriting?
Much better, and I credit that to the fact that because I edit.
Yeah, you're writing for the edit.
Yes. And while I'm editing, I'm learning. Ooh, that was boring. Let's not do that. Now I understand why you don't write 5-page monologues, because I cut all that out.
So fucking guilty. I'm so guilty of that.
Exactly. You sometimes you have to learn just by doing.
Dude.
You feel like you're gonna be the norm, and sometimes there's the rare opportunity that you are, but more than likely you're gonna learn why things have been done certain ways for years. Some
truths are just true.
Yeah. And so that's how I learned through my editing and learned through and I would say I credit Fun Employment to making me the filmmaker I am today.
Okay. I'm going to ask you the big question: did the movie make its money back?
Never.
How do we do that? And how have you learned how to do that? Because that to me is
Yes.
everything.
Yes. So,
Like for me, you said, being an editor informs you as a screenwriter. Well, to me, being the business person, how does this thing make its money back? How does it make a profit?
yeah.
It informs me as a filmmaker
You
now.
know what? Technically, I did make my money back because it wasn't even my money to pay it. It was
Well, because you didn't go in debt.
I never went into debt.
Yeah.
I didn't.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, I never went into debt. I never owed anybody any money.
Yeah, that's good.
And
when did you start photography, and when did you screen it, and what was the time between that?
So, funny story. I shot it in 2014. I started editing it, and then I would say halfway through the edit, everything corrupted. My project file corrupted everything, and I got really depressed. And so then I pretended the project didn't exist for a bit, and
that's dark.
Yes, and then picked it back up. So it was a half a year later before I picked it back up again to start editing it, and I had new blood. I had a mentee that was training, James Crouch, who is now a very good editor, who wanted stuff to edit, and I was like, well, there's this project that I was editing, and so he breathed life into it, and then I got excited again.
Oh, thank God for that.
Yes, and then
it sounds like it's a technological conundrum, right?
It was like I learned so much stuff, from it, but like it was really
now red footage is easier to edit than DSLR footage because of the compression.
And also your proxies, man. I could have solved all my problems with proxies.
I know, we didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't know.
I certainly didn't know that in 2014.
Yeah, I did not know, and I learned very fast after that.
So he breathes new
life
blood into it,
yes. And then in the middle of the post-production, 2014, my lead actor, Adam Duncan, he's from Shreveport, Louisiana. He said, hey, there's this competition called the Louisiana Film Prize, which is the winner gets $50,000. Don't worry, spoiler, I've never ever won it. But
it's rigged. It's got to be rigged then.
But I've made films ever since, every year in Shreveport.
Features?
Because of that. They're all shorts.
Oh, wow.
So I went backwards.
That's okay.
And I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
Because my short...
I think shorts are harder,
That one you can find, A Bird's Nest.
Oh, okay. Send that to me. I think shorts are way harder because you actually have to finish it and make it.
Yeah.
It's harder.
So that was the first project that I before. So in between this, I shot A Bird's Nest, finished it.
I love your titles
and everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this film. And this was the film that I went to film festivals with for the first time and understood what film festivals were.
What are film festivals?
It is a way for filmmakers to network. It is a way to showcase your films. And depending on the level of the film festival and what you're trying to get out of it, it could also mean connections to distributors and people that could advance your career. I definitely feel like we are growing away from it a little bit. We have more options
as a culture. I think
society? We have more options. We just have more options. It's not that I don't think film festivals will ever die.
Okay,
but I do think that there's just more options now.
Yeah.
It used to be that the film festivals were the only way to get your stuff seen.
What are the options now?
Put it on YouTube. Put it on. There's distribution companies like Shorts TV. All my shorts are distributed through Shorts TV. They're cable based.
Wow.
There are other ones that have come from that. Indie Flicks is one of them. Mm-hmm. I know there's more than what I'm naming.
Of course.
And now, really, if you can just build your network, and they've seen in a body of work that you've finished and is decent, then it's a lot easier to find like-minded people who want to help support you and give you access, at least maybe if not money, resources.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, and you're very resourceful.
Yes,
Even
because
even when you didn't have the resources, you were resourceful.
and that's the other secret sauce.
I know it is. It really is. I
being
preach that one.
resourceful.
It's
Being
everything.
very, very resourceful. And I think it's resourcefulness being like understanding that, hey, yeah, everybody's thinking about money all the
Well, it's
time.
squeezing $1 out of a dime.
Right. But what is money? Money is just a means of getting your resources. So if you could skip that middle part of money and jump directly to the resources, aren't you essentially doing the same thing? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the part that people forget about. They just think, I don't have the money, I don't have the money, so I can't make it. I think, I don't have the money, but somebody's going to donate me this location. Ching.
Hell yeah.
Somebody's going to donate food. There we go. I can do it in one location that's whatever. I have
these 3 actors are hungry and they just want a reel or whatever.
Now I have the resources.
That's right.
And I didn't need the money.
Yeah.
So I think that's the part that people get caught up on is this like, I mean, eventually you are going to need the money. The reality is when you're at a certain level, money talks, right? But prior to that, when you're learning and you're not making your Steven Spielberg Academy Award winning film, you can get away with a lot of stuff. So I learned that really, really fast through Fun Employment.
Did you make a feature after Fun Employment?
I am planning on it.
Right now?
Right now.
Can you say a name? A title?
Urzuli is the name of the...
How do you say that?
Urzuli. I think it's a Creole, a French Urzuli. It's basically like a queen goddess of some sort.
Where are you going to film it?
I'm filming it in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Is there a script?
Yes, there is, yeah.
Do you have the resources?
I have most of the resources locked down. Now I just need to go pitch and grab the money portion of it.
So I want to talk about where you're at right now and what you have going on. But let's get the COVID bullshit out of the way.
Sure.
How did that affect your business? Did it?
You know, the crazy thing was it made me more prolific.
How?
So everybody, myself included, had a halt from March to June, right? That's about like where it was. I was lucky where I had been working nonstop since October. So my next gig was going to be South by, and South by got canceled. But I didn't see it as I'm fucked. I saw it as thank God I need a break. And I utilized that time to write. I utilized that time to get realisms up and running.
Do you meditate?
Faster. I'm trying to do it more. I know there's a lot of benefits to it.
How do you reset? How do you recalibrate?
I think the way I do it is jumping locations. Does that make sense? So, like if I'm in Shreveport, I'll take a trip to Austin. I just came from Hawaii. Took it. For some reason,
did you have to show them I'm negative?
Yes, I did.
So nice.
I did have to. I did do all this stuff. But I think for me, when I'm stuck, if I can put myself in a new environment, that tends to somehow in there shake something up that makes me continue to function better.
I'm gonna ask you a personal question.
Sure.
No kids.
No kids.
Do you have a desire to have kids?
Yes, eventually.
That's beautiful. Do you have a special significant person?
No.
Do you?
That's one of the sacrifices.
It's one of the sacrifices.
I work a lot.
Is it hard for them?
Yeah.
Can you do the work-life balance thing? I know it's super hard to balance.
Right now, to be honest, I have not had a work-life balance in a while.
Where are you tipping? Where are the extremities?
Well, I travel a lot now for my work. I full-time AD, something else that fell into it.
That's great, man. You must fucking crush it as an AD.
Apparently, because I keep getting hired for it.
Doing television?
No, features actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Name drop some people.
Thunder Road, Jim Cummings.
Wow.
That was one of the bigger things.
That's huge.
Yeah. I just finished.
Were you on set every day?
I AD'd for the first week. They didn't really need one. And again, hustling.
What is the position called? the team sort of like, they get the B-roll essentially, get inserts and pickups.
Oh, like a second unit director or something like
I
that.
feel like that is a really valuable piece of filmmaking.
Yeah.
Haven't you ever looked back and you've been like, man, I needed inserts of this and that and this and that?
Yeah, but the thing is, most of these indie films can't afford like a second unit, so it's really just like maybe the director and the DP go off when principal photography is done and they pick up some of these things.
How are you today, 2021, financially?
I am doing awesome.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because like I lucked out during that period of March to June. I got a lot of things started I didn't have time to do. Building, get realisms, writing and everything. So I utilized that time wisely. My roommate would say that like it was really annoying living with me during quarantine because she had a job that she was going to full time, yet somehow I probably worked more than she did. Because I was hungry, right? And so I hadn't had that kind of breather in so long. I'd just been going as an AD and everything. That when I had that, I put a lot of things in motion. And so when the first things opened up, I got lucky. This is luck. I got on one of the first SAG approved projects from when things were starting to open up around
Which
June.
one?
It was a film called No More Goodbyes in Bryan, Texas, feature. And because of that, I was one of the first to deal with COVID as an AD.
Wow.
And because of that, after that, when things started to open up even more and people were scared to deal with COVID, I was one of the first ADs that had. So then like I just kept getting jobs after jobs after jobs after that. And it's been pretty much nonstop. So I've been very, very, very lucky. And then
how do you balance working for other people's building their dreams and working and building yours? Are you selfish in that way? Like you really want to get your shit in?
I totally want to get my shit in, but I treat it as everything as a learning experience. So when I'm on someone else's set, I'm thinking I get to learn from their mistakes.
Of course.
I get to watch and know what not to do.
On their dime.
And I really take it that way. And I'm still collecting people off of those sets, finding my tribe, finding who I want to work with in the future. But I think I don't see it as, oh, I'm making someone else's dream. I see it as I'm technically still making my dream come dream because I'm learning on someone else's dime what not to do, so that when I'm going to go balls to the wall for my thing, it's going to be awesome.
Tell me the moment your parents got it. It clicked for them.
It was business school, graduation. I had made a bunch of stuff. So besides making funny things, making fun of business school, I also helped the business school make some stuff for them to help them raise money and whatever. I guess that meant something to them. I got the dean's, I guess, service award is what you call it.
Wow.
Yeah, some big award that like only 2 people in the whole class gets, basically. And
that's awesome.
so I think my parents from that realized like, oh, like what you do means something to someone, even though we don't understand. But like clearly your school picked you for this award.
Yeah.
So that was like, I remember that being one of the most pleasant dinner conversations I've ever had in a very long time. Like they were just happy and like they understood. They didn't ask me why I didn't get another kind of job, why I was still doing what I was doing, blah, blah, blah. It was pleasant. And then that was one moment.
They don't know what they don't know.
Yes, they don't know what they know. So I don't blame them. So that was one moment. What solidified it was, it's weird. My brother was, when you go to medical school, there's a day called match day when you figure out which school you're going to end up for actual med school. I brought my camera and that was it.
Which camera?
The Canon 7D, I believe, with the 24-70 lens. It's my favorite lens.
2.8.
Still. Yes, 2.8. Still my favorite lens, and I will roll with that ever.
That's all I got right there.
I love this lens.
Hell yeah.
It does everything. It does macro as well. And it's fantastic. I'm so good at it that like even if I can't see my screen, I know I'll be in focus. Like I just know the lens so well.
Yeah, the focus length. Yeah.
Exactly. And I that was all I brought. I didn't even bring a tripod or anything. And I just captured little moments here and there. And I edited it into one little like, here you go, brother. You're welcome.
He didn't ask for that.
He didn't ask for that.
Oh, you're that guy?
Yeah.
That's me.
So I gave it to him, and I get a phone call from my parents like freaking out, and they're like, "Oh my god, like this is the most beautiful thing we've ever seen. Like you have a gift." Like that was what they understood.
Wow.
And I was like, really? I was like, I had like no lighting, no set, like nothing. I had one lens, no stabilization. It was just moments that I picked off that I was just doing for fun because I wanted my brother to have some memory, and just like edited. And that's what they understood. They were like, from here on, like we won't say shit. They still do, but like not as much. And they're like, we get it. We understand that you have a talent. Like you need to do this. Like they got it from that. Of all things, I'm like, I've made like short films. I've gotten awards. I've made all these other things, but like it was that moment that they understood.
Maybe they needed to be the right audience.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Because you make these things for PayPal. They don't give a shit about PayPal.
They don't care. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
that's
they
what it
understood that. They understood the value of what it made, I guess.
That's when it clicked.
Yeah, it clicked. And then since then they've been, I mean, they still worry their parents, right? And it is hard still, you know, here and there. You're still there's still ebbs and flows of like, well, nobody's ever going to hire me again. Everybody always has that. And I always tell people that, like, it doesn't go away. You'll finish a big project and you're technically unemployed, right? And you just need to learn to see those periods of time as like, oh, it's time for myself to do something else or to develop something else. But I think that comes with experience, understanding how to wait those times and seeing it from a different perspective.
How many years have you been a filmmaker now?
Well, let's say I was serious about it starting in 2010. That's when I was like, I'm going to do this as my full-time career. But I was dabbling in making films since 2003 because that's when I started doing documentaries. So I did documentaries from 2003 to 2008, had an aha moment in 2008, started dabbling and doing YouTube stuff 2009, 2010, started my production company, Moth of Flame, 2010 while I was going to business school.
Still running.
Got my first AD gig in 2016, then went full-time AD from 2016 till now still, and then been directing everywhere in between at any opportunity that I can between all that.
What informs your hunger today? Like, what do you have to prove?
It's just telling better stories.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's always just, what can I do better? Every year I have a goal, like, what can I... And there's simple stuff like how... The year that I did Yaobi, which is still probably to this day the most successful short I've done.
How was it successful?
It did the whole academy process.
Did it?
Yeah, so it was academy qualified. We went through the whole process. I learned what it means to get shortlisted. I didn't get shortlisted, but we were like, you know, compare. That was a cool moment because I remember 3 years before that watching the academy shorts on by Shorts TV in the theaters and being like, oh, I'll never get there. And then 3 years later being like, well, I'm very, like, my stuff is definitely comparable to the stuff that's in the running right now.
Of course. Was it your baby?
Yeah, that was totally.
And so did you write it?
Yes, I wrote that one. Yes.
How do you know when something's done and it's like, okay, I'm going to make this. This is going to be the thing. Do you stop everything or are you still ADing and doing all this crazy shit?
I'm always doing 10 things at once, always.
And how do you focus and give the thing the time it needs?
I think I've just gotten really good at...
Everything's just automated?
Not necessarily, but I think I'm extremely good at time management. And I'm very good at like checklisting. Checklist everything. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. So I never understand people who are bored.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never bored.
I'm never bored.
I have too many things them doing that, to be bored. Like people like I remember being in background, I've done background work and stuff like that, and like background like complaining because they're so bored. And I'm like sitting there with my computer, like working on 10 other projects. And I'm like, why? Or like lines. People are always mad about lines. And I've already come up with a system. I can do work on my phone.
That's right.
So I'm on my phone reconciling my accounts.
I look forward to lines.
Yeah. I'm
you
like
got 20 minutes to do something.
Yeah, I'm sitting there doing something. I catch up on all those meeting calls or whatever. I've
airplanes, man.
Yeah. Work. I have a whole system, to edit and everything, and pull out my, my drive, I think that's what I've become very good at, is I'm obsessed with efficiency.
Where can you be better?
Exactly. Where can I shave off some time?
Yeah.
Where can I make it so that anytime I'm idle, I can be working or making money or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm. And
that's why I feel like I'm able to do so many things, because I don't stop everything. I'm still ADing. I just got off one, and I'm prepping the next 2-3, things that I have in the works, and I'm also prepping the feature that I'm wanting to shoot in March.
What are you gonna do with the feature?
So I have a promise of distribution.
What does that mean? Cool.
It means that they believe in.
Who's they?
So another funny story. It's funny, like the whole just parts that fit together that you never thought would. And so one of the first actresses that I ever worked with back in Houston, we continue to keep in contact. Well, when I did A Bird's Nest, I met another one of her friends, Han Soto, who's also another actor, and maintained that relationship. And then while that was happening, there was a competition that came up called 10th Square. And, I love competitions. And it was I call them quick fire challenges. So some sort of brief, something I would not normally do. Mm-hmm. And you spend one day on it, you make it, and it's a quick fire. That's why I call it quick fire challenges. It's to make you think outside of the box and create something. So it'd be stuff like.
Do you do these on your own?
Yeah, with my my team.
Yeah.
That Moth Flame team.
Wow.
And it'll just be like, hey, so I have this crazy idea. It's I wrote it already. It's a page. It'll take a day and a half of your time. You want to come hang out? It's an opportunity for us to hang out too.
Yeah.
And so it'll be briefs like Fantasia Film Festival, for example. I didn't know what that was, which it's a huge fantastical film festival. I did not know that. In Montreal, I believe. It was their 20-year anniversary, so they wanted to create something that has the number 20 in it. That's 30 seconds long. That was the brief. So my one of my team members was like, wouldn't it be funny if this dude pulls off his head and throws his head, and then it's at the 20-yard mark? And he was just kidding. And I was like, done. Let's do that. And he was like, what? I was like, yeah, that's the best idea ever. And so, we executed in a day thing. And that little quick fire challenge got me a ticket to Montreal.
Wow.
Where I saw that little bumper play right before this awesome film that had the lead from Big Bang Theory or whatever, and then introduced me to fantasy world. And see how that comes full circle?
Of course.
Anyways, that was for 10th Square, and I did a series of these competitions, and I don't know why more people didn't do it, but I won pretty much every competition I did in there. And they're little, they were like $500 here, or a ticket to Montreal, or here and there.
Wow.
Well, that competition dissolved somehow, and I don't know. But the third person who ran that competition is part of this trifecta. So Candace, Han, and Andrew. Andrew's from 10th Square. Andrew actually managed a distribution company that was growing in New York. And what they focus on is thriller, horror, fantasy type genre stuff. They came together and asked me, hey, because of this distribution company, we're getting asked thrown a lot of scripts, and so now we're thinking of doing like a talent management company type thing. We want you to be part of it type thing, like to
As
manage
what?
you.
To manage you?
Yeah, so like as a like if
Representation?
yes, like if we get
Wow.
scripts and we feel like you might be a good fit, we will show it to you. If you like it, we'll put together the team, and then like
That's kind of the dream.
yeah. So I was like, sure. I was like, and then they kind of just in passing, just said, oh yeah, and well, this is the kind of content we do, is like horror genre type stuff. If you just happen to have anything, I didn't. If you happen to have anything in that line, bring it to us, and because we like your work and we know your work, we will back you in terms of, we will give you a distribution deal. Wow. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, let me think about this. And I had an idea. And
was this one already in the can?
This was this was just something.
It came after.
It just came.
Wow.
And it was a mermaid film. And I had just got done ADing 3 features back to back in Baton Rouge on this property, John Schneider Studios, which is like in the middle of nowhere, in the woods, but like it's like hillbilly resort basically. There's a giant ass pool in the middle and like all these little cabins, and like if you can think creatively, there's a lot you can do and film in this location.
Sounds very unique.
Yes, it's extremely unique. And I was like, I'm gonna write it for this place. And so I did, and I told them, and so now they're like, great, we want a final product by May.
Wow. Yeah. Holy smokes. So I want to get a little nerdy here. Mm-hmm. First of all, congratulations. Because I mean, that's the dream. That's what every filmmaker that's ever aspiring filmmaker, independent filmmaker, what they think is that it's a straight line to get to that opportunity. It's not. It's
a massive web. Like I've already told you how they all it's all over the place and it's happening simultaneously. And it's just the ability to decipher from that web of a mess which opportunity you should jump on first.
That's right.
I actually have another feature I was planning on making instead of this one. That I've been planning, that I was writing during quarantine, that I was like gung-ho to do it, but then quarantine and all that stuff, and I was like, this may not be the right film time that I should do this yet. And this other one I jumped on instead. Yeah. And that's just how it goes. I think that's the other secret sauce, is the ability to wade through a mess of points and figure out what to focus on first.
Prioritizing.
Yeah. It's prioritizing.
That's a hard one. You can't teach that, I feel. A lot of people think that they can bypass the time, the patience, the sacrifice, the failures, the money loss, disappointing people. I mean, you rolled the dice and you risked disappointing your parents. Mm-hmm. It's hard coming from an immigrant culture. People can't take that risk. Yeah. They don't know how. But then there's resentment that's there forever between them and their parents. And, totally. And I think it's way easier to ask forgiveness than permission.
Yeah. And now, like, I've been trying my best to, like, rebuild, things with my parents, and it's working.
That's great.
And so, like, yeah, I didn't ask for permission.
Yo, if you were my daughter, I'd be so proud of you, because, I mean, it sounds like you did it without their help.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's insane. So I want to get real techie real fast, and then I want to give you your time back. Thank you for indulging me. This has been the greatest conversation I've ever had with a filmmaker.
Oh.
And I've had hundreds. So thank you. Thank you. And thank you for coming to the crib. How are you going to deliver the product by May? And what does the product look like insofar as, do you have to put it through, I forget what the houses are called, that do all the subtitles and all that crazy shit. And do you have to finish it that way? Or you don't give them a H.264 file.
No, you have to, it's a package, right? Well, I have a very detailed timeline that I've made for myself. Very specific.
How many shooting days do you estimate?
10 to 12.
Wow. Mm. Girl, you're going to be working 18-hour days.
Not the way I do my homework.
Yeah?
Yeah, and I've done enough where I've watched what not to do.
Okay.
And the key is prep.
10 to 12.
Yeah. You can do a lot if you prep. the crap out of it. And
Yeah.
the beauty of it is I already know this location, so I'm not going in blind. I know it in and out. I was there for for a month and a half on this piece of property.
That's great.
Some of the team members I plan on bringing were also on this property for the same amount of time, so we know what we have to work with. So what
are you going to film it on?
I would like to film on the Arri Alexa Mini.
Beautiful. Wow.
And but I'm flexible, so like I'm not gonna be like I won't make my film because I don't have an Arri Alexa Mini. You know, if I can't, then it wasn't meant to be. I'll use something else, right? But I would love to use the Arri Alexa Mini because it's very beautiful.
Talk to me about the deliverables, the package.
So you usually will have your obviously H.264 and
you do create that
or a ProRes version.
How do you turn that in? On a hard drive?
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be 500 gigabytes.
You got to put it's on a drive. Sometimes if they will have like for like shorts, they had like a media shuttle you did online, but it took for. I hated that because like internet here is awesome. Internet in Shreveport sucks balls, like terrible.
Or wherever Airbnb that you're in at any given moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So usually drive. It'll be in ProRes, depending on
422.
422, and depending on if you're gonna do it theatrically or whatever, you're gonna probably need right now I just like blinked, but it's another format for exhibition that they can build off of your 4K ProRes export, and then from there they'll expect like a what is it called? It's basically the subtitle thing, but it's by time code, and it has like every dialogue.
Are they doing multiple languages?
I haven't thought it through.
I know for Netflix they have a very strict.
Probably, yeah. I have, So we'll see. I'll have to go and see what their deliverable package looks like.
Wow.
But yeah, the subtitling portion, they'll have a music cue sheet, that goes with it.
That's amazing.
And then a bunch of like art, I guess you would call it. So like when you go to Netflix, you'll see like the art. So that, that kind of deliverable. And
thumbnails, essentially.
Thumbnails, and they'll have their specs that they will want it and stuff like that.
Do you have to make all those decisions?
If I don't have money to pay people, yeah. But I'm used to that.
Of course. That's your normal.
That's my normal. Yeah. So it's normal for me to do everything.
What kind of runtime do you want to hit?
Less than, an hour 30, probably. Nothing. Yeah. I don't want to go over that.
Do you think it's going to be R?
No, I think I'm going to aim for a PG-13. Yeah. I'm sitting in there counting my F words, making sure I don't have. Every time I see F word, I'm like, yeah, you get one. So
I was told once that I can't have a character smoke a cigarette, and that's an R.
Really?
I was told that.
I need to look into that because there's definitely somebody that's in mind that's smoking weed.
And if that's not true, fuck you for gaslighting me. I was like, okay, then it's an R.
Yeah,
whatever.
Crap. Well, there's definitely somebody in mind smoking weed. I'll have to look at that.
Are you you're not going to be the director of photography?
No.
So you got a guy or a gal?
I have a few people in mind that I'm pinning down that we'll see who pans out. Because this is not, when you get a certain quality of person, they're also used to certain ways of living and lifestyle.
Yeah.
And this is not one of those places where you're going to be put up in a nice hotel. But what's the next secret sauce? Be brutally honest.
Yep. Radical candor.
Always be brutally honest. And I think that's what I'm really good at. I'm not a salesperson. I'm not going to be like, hey, this is going to make your career and you're going to be so comfortable. No, I'm going to tell you it's like camping. And I'm sorry, but that's what it's going to be. And it's going to be fun.
I low-key love that, though.
Yeah.
I love the community bucket that we all piss in, and that's part of the fun.
But you have to be, I think people will deal with a lot of stuff if they know to expect it.
Of course.
And that's the biggest mistake that I see filmmakers make.
I agree.
Is that they oversell things and then people come in with that expectation, and when they're surprised, then they get pissy and mad and whatever. But if I just lay it all out and tell them exactly what they're getting into, it's easier for me to over deliver.
Absolutely. I learned day one filming my first feature, fuck looking cool.
Yeah.
And fuck spending money trying to look cool. It doesn't matter. Like if I had just, I was that salesperson. I was trying to sell that this was going to be X, Y, and Z. And it was just expensive. And I wasn't being true to myself. And then none of those things even made the edit. So it was just a waste, you know? And yeah, you know, I think people just want to work with you because it's a learning experience. I mean, you're a great leader.
Yeah, and I think the thing is that like you
and they trust you.
Yes, it's trust and also understanding what do people want, right? So again, it's not always all about money. Yes, money is great, money speaks, and yes, I've worked for plenty of jobs for the money.
It's easy.
Yes,
it's a transaction.
Exactly, but if you think about it, sometimes it's like, I want to do this because I've never worked in this genre. I want to do this because I've always wanted to work with this particular person. I want to do this because I've never been to Baton Rouge. I want to do. So you have to, I think the beauty of having worked as an AD, I always joke that as an AD, you're kind of a part therapist, psychologist, you know, is being able to read people and understand their quirks and what they actually want, right? And so I think that's why I've been able to be so resourceful, is because I go beyond the surface of what it seems like they want to what they truly want from a deeper level.
Yeah.
You know,
your emotional intelligence is off the fucking charts.
I'm very, yeah, but it bites me in the ass a lot though.
Why? How?
People take advantage of it, you know. Because I'm soft and I can logically say why someone was an ass to me.
But think about it. You let people in, and if they hurt you, then you know I can't trust this person, right? So it goes back to the speed and the trust thing as well. If they burn you, well, then you know it hurts, ow, but this wasn't going to work, and it's better to get this pain out of the way now.
Sure, but then you do feel more pain than
I know.
The more people.
I can feel it. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the part that
you got thick skin.
I've developed it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have hurt me. So not I mean, it's just by being people. I have no, you know, but that's the thing is because I let people in. Yeah.
Of course.
So
I gotta tell you, if I had 3 more hours with you, it wouldn't be enough. So let's wrap up here, and thank you so much for this. This has just been riveting. I mean, we made a movie here. This is the way I see it.
Hopefully it is of value to somebody.
Absolutely. You have no idea. You have no idea, Christine. Thank you so much for this. 3 things that you could have told 16-year-old or 2003 Christine that would have helped her along this journey and maybe saved her some pain that we can tell the next aspiring Christine that's out there listening right now. What are 3 things? It could be one thing, but what is something, a jewel, a gem that you think could have helped her stay the course along the way when shit gets rough?
Honestly, I think the biggest, I wish I had started sooner. I wish I hadn't been afraid for so long, you know?
Why were you afraid?
It's failure, right? Upsetting certain people, my parents or whatever, not being good enough, I think you just need to jump. I think I look at people who are like in their 20s right now and like so talented and working. I'm like, man, they've got 10 years of me, and I'm like, oh, I wish
still
I
a baby girl. You know that, right?
Sometimes I'm like,
I guarantee you. I mean, you love movies.
I love movies.
You love watching movies, going to the theater, and all that.
Yes.
Your favorite filmmakers, your favorite movies. Something tells me these creators were in their 40s, 50s, 60s when they made them.
It's possible, yes.
Absolutely. I mean, the 21-year-old filmmakers are the Orson Welles. They're one out of a billion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you need the reps. I mean, you're still a baby.
Yeah.
There are people that look at you in your industry that you're probably going to work with that say, Christine, I would trade it all to be 35. I guarantee it.
Yes. And that's the biggest thing. Just be
Start
earlier. Start earlier. Be fearless. And then the second thing is always be willing to help somebody else. because that will always come full circle. But that shouldn't be why you help somebody else. Like, you shouldn't ever be thinking, I'm helping this person because in the future they might help me. Like, no, that's never in your. You help them because, like, we all came from somewhere. We came from nothing, or we came from not knowing anything, and be willing to teach, you know. People will forget everything, but they will never forget the way you made them feel. I will never forget the way certain people have made me feel, and they're probably regretting it, you know.
Yeah.
And so always treat people with respect. It doesn't matter what position they're doing, or whether they can help you right now, or who they are, you know. Take that time. So whenever people like message me randomly out the blue, I'm like, sure, why not? Why are you asking me? Sure, I'll help. Or like, I'll if I can, I'll direct you to somebody who has that time at that point too. But I will take the time to do that. And I think that's important. Is treat everybody with respect. And then discipline. I've always had a lot of discipline though, so I don't know if I would really tell myself that, but I think I just value it even more.
There's no getting around it.
There isn't. There's no secret thing that will get you to the top immediately. You have to go through, and because you learn through that, you learn through the mistakes. It's the journey that makes you who you are, you know. And so I am the filmmaker I am because I suffered through making a $30,000 shitty. Okay, it's not shit. I love it. Feature film.
It's your baby.
Yeah, and I've made many other ones. And did they all go in film festivals? No, not necessarily. But I learned something from all those experiences, and even the worst days on set, I learned something from that. So if you can go through with that discipline, with the open heart and open mind of everything that you do is a blessing, and you appreciate that, and what can I learn from this experience, then I think it'll always be new and interesting and fun, and continue to collect people with you because they'll breathe life and make you appreciate it too when maybe you're tired and don't know why you're doing it anymore. So,
Christine, thank you so much. I reached out, or you reached out, or you know, and here we are. We get to have this conversation together. I'm a better person for it. Thank you for saying yes to me. You really didn't have to, you know. It takes a lot of guts to come out in Austin when it's snowing.
It's snowing.
It's snowing, and to meet a stranger essentially. But it means the world to me, and people are going to remember this one.
But I feel like I know you through your work. You know,
well,
I learned. I know. I feel like I know you because I've watched your work. You know.
Yeah, and likewise. And please link me up with everything. I'm going to flip this really, really fast. Link me up with stuff so I can direct people to your work as well. And please, like, use me anytime you need to promote like your next thing or whatever. Like when this new movie, if it's going to make the rounds and you want people to see it, like, I want to be a part of your press junket. You know, I would love to promote it because I want to do a part 2 of this.
Yeah,
I can learn so much from you, Sensei. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.